All right, and welcome everyone to episode 1 of Stuff You Need For podcast. And in our first episode, we started out just going over podcasting microphones, and now we're going to go over the rest of the signal chain and all the things you need to record a podcast onto your computer and put it out on the web. Maybe it's just real quick, I'll go over the overview of the stuff that happens between the microphone and the computer, and then we'll go through some recommendations. So sort of the components of a recording system are the microphone itself, which we talked about last time. The microphone generates some electrical signal that goes through the wire. That goes through the wire and then needs to get boosted into the right range with a device called a preamp. And then something converts that electrical signal, once it's in the right range, into zeros and ones and digital, and that's called an analog to digital converter. And then something needs to get those zeros and ones into your computer and recorded. And in the case of a USB microphone, all that's just one device. It's all built in. Otherwise, once you get a step up, you have an analog microphone. Most of that will be built into what's called either an audio interface or a mixer. A USB mixer will also send that off to your computer as well. You can break that down further. One particular thing that's worth noting for podcasting, especially with these broadcast kind of microphones, is a very important part of that chain is the preamp, because these microphones don't put up a lot of signal. So you need something that has enough room to actually boost that signal without introducing a lot of noise or hiss to the recording. And a lot of audio interfaces and mixers are not up to that challenge necessarily, because they're more designed for a different type of microphone that puts out more signal. In particular, you need about 60 decibels of gain, which is like the boost you get from your preamp to handle this type of microphone. And further, like, you don't want to get all the way to the top of your preamp's gain, because then it introduces that noise, that hiss that you hear. So the downside, of course, is that there's not any really reasonably priced setup for that, and there's very few preamps even at higher prices that are designed to do that much output. So we'll talk about some of the ways you can handle dealing with that just a sec. And one note, there's a lot of the information you'll find online about being able to handle these low gain microphones you'll find in relation to the Shure SM7B, because that one has particularly low output levels. I'll throw up some links on the post to sites that talk about options for that. So basically, before we start talking about audio interfaces and those kind of options, the approach that you can take to sort of keep things reasonably priced with like a normal lower end $100 or so audio interface or lower priced mixer, there's two devices that are actually designed specifically to address this problem. One is called the FET Head, F-E-T Head, from Triton Audio, which is I think it's a European company. And it's just this little device here that it just plugs in line with your microphone. You can plug it in at the microphone into the cable, or you can do it at the other end if you have a short cable. If you have a really long cable, it's sometimes better to boost the signal at the microphone. And this thing runs off of just the phantom power from your audio interface or preamp. That's designed for running condenser microphones, and since these are dynamic microphones and don't need that, basically what this does, and what the other device I'm about to show you does, is boosts the gain by about 20 dB, which gets you right in the range where you can comfortably use a normal preamp that's designed for condenser microphones. And this device is about 75 euros. You can buy it straight from Triton. And right now, actually, the exchange rate is basically 1-to-1. So it's about $75 as well. since you're buying from the company in Europe. It actually comes really fast. It came in about a week. Shipping's only like $5 because it comes in these tiny tubes that just are in a regular envelope, or like a document pouch, like padded document pouch envelope. And the other device that serves the same purpose is from Cloud Microphones. Actually, I'm not sure. Yeah, they're called Cloud Microphones. And it's this blue box here. You plug 2 cables into it instead of just plugging in line like that other device. And that's $150. I compared the two on my Behringer mixer, which is the worst of these two, this audio interface. And the Cloud Lifter has a little less background hiss, and it was what I noticed. Otherwise, they're almost identical in applying a fixed amount of about 20 dB of gain. There's the ohms resistance or something. I don't know what that is exactly, but it's slightly different. So either one, I mean, it's a lot more expensive. And the other thing to note is that if you're doing this for a lot of microphones, it's like $75 or $150 per microphone. So that quickly adds up, and maybe you would want to get one of these higher end audio interfaces designed for the task. And yeah, so those are what lets you use regular stuff. And I wish I had known ahead of time that these were so low output, because I might have done things slightly differently when doing it.
What would you have done then?
Well, so because I ended up buying 2 of these fat heads and a third Cloud Lifter just to compare, I might return the Cloud Lifter. It added basically $150 on to the total cost, so it was getting up to the price where some of these higher end models would have started making more sense.
Gotcha.
Although maybe not. I mean, I think it's hard to get this much functionality at a reasonable price, because things in the audio world add up quickly. Anyways, so there's 2 devices I'm going to talk about today that are sort of the step up from a USB microphone. And basically your choices are either a mixer or an audio interface. A mixer is designed more for live sound typically. And if you're doing your podcast live, that makes total sense. And it allows you to apply effects and equalization, meaning like you can boost the lows, mids, highs of the voice and change that separately. So there's a lot of functionality built in. This one that I'm going to show you is kind of expensive, but it actually has a lot more functionality built in that it can record each separate input into a separate track when you either on the computer, if you plug it in via USB or FireWire, or onto a USB drive. So you don't even need to have a computer or an iPad or anything to record to. And here, I'll pick it up and show it to you. So here it is. It has 4 XLR inputs with preamps in them. They're not very powerful, so you definitely need, for a broadcast microphone or a non-condensing microphone, you definitely need a Cloud Lifter or a fat head to get you in the right range.
Per microphone.
For the microphones, yeah. And then it has an additional, I think, 8 inputs, so 12 total, that you would need to buy a separate preamp for. Plug your microphone in the preamp, plug it in, if you want to do more. But it's great if you're doing like a panel show or something like that, or somebody's on Skype and you want to route to them all the voices except for their own, so that they can hear the conversation, what's going on. That's called a mix minus setup, and that's something you're easiest to do on a mixer. You might be able to find some combination of software to do it, but honestly, you're probably going to want a mixer for that kind of live or Skype in type show. And yeah, I mean, it's great in that it has tons of functionality. Really, there's nothing else like it on the market for anywhere close to the same price. Mackie makes a line called Onyx of mixers that do the same thing, but they require what's called a FireWire connection, which basically only older Macintosh computers, Macs have. Older PCs might have it too, but it's been many years. I don't know. Like, you used to use a video camera that had it, and we just couldn't.
Yeah, like a long time ago.
Yeah, and you could maybe like get a card
at least
for
10 years ago, 15.
Yeah, you might be able to get like a card and to enable your desktop to read that again, but not a laptop these days. And this guy also has they call it single knob compression, but it's basically a dial that applies some fixed compression, meaning making the quiet parts louder and the loud parts quieter. So you can have that sort of live signal going through it. There are other mixers that you can use for recording as well. They almost all have, they're cheaper. They're like $150 or so, and they almost all have basically a USB out that will record just the left and right main mix. So you could, in theory, have two different tracks by putting one microphone all the way left and another all the way right, and still use that as a two-track audio interface. But that's not really what it's designed for. So there's the Mackie Pro Effects line. It's reasonably priced. There's many other options from Behringer, Alesis, Yamaha. It's hard to find the gain specs on them, but I don't think most of them, the built-in preamps, are going to be quite loud enough. So you might have to either apply some digital gain, like turning up the volume in software after you've recorded it, and just hope that the converter was in a good enough range for you, and that there's low enough noise that you can turn it up without getting that hiss digitally, or use one of these cloud lifters or Fathead type devices. That's mixers. Excuse me. Then your other option is an audio interface, and there's these boxes like this. So this one is a 2-input device from PreSonus, which is, I think PreSonus and Focusrite are kind of the nicer ones in the $100 to $200 range. It works great. It has slightly more gain than the Behringer. Like, I only have to turn up the gain halfway on each microphone when using a cloud lifter or a Fathead, and it uses slightly less noise. So that's all nice. A lot of people knock Behringer for being not as good. They just are cheap and have a lot of functionality built in. So that said, if you want to go higher end to the point where you don't need a cloud lift or something like that, you need to look for something that has about 70 dBs of gain. It's going to be expensive. You can find one from Focusrite. There's basically a lot of clones of this. I think it's from Apogee, this Mac only interface. So you could try I think it's Apogee Duo. And there's a lot of devices that are competing for that to be like really high end 2-input small devices. There's one from Focusrite called the Forte, and that's expensive. It's like $400 right now. Typically on clearance, I think they must be coming out with a new version or just getting rid of it. No need for a cloud lifter. It has 75 dB of gain. I talked to someone who had used it for an SM7 and it worked fine. Or there's a company called RME that used to make something called a Babyface, which is still available for $650, where they just came out with a Babyface Pro, which has, again, I think it's 70 dB of gain. The Pro version does. The other one has less, but I think it's quiet enough you could use it. That's going to be $750. It has 2 XLR inputs for microphones, 2 line level inputs, which means you'd need your own preamp. And then it can plug into other devices via digital connection to expand up to 30 channels. That's more for like pro stuff. But yeah, I don't know. So you're just starting to start using XLR microphones now, right, Aaron?
Yeah, I've used it maybe once.
Yeah. And did you use this device or did you use the mixer? I was just curious,
I've used the mixer, but then when we did the previous one, we had all the microphones connected. We used that one.
Okay. So, how did you find using this? Like, a mixer has a lot of,
it's complicated. If you're just starting out, the sound quality is pretty good with the with just the USB mics that I've had. The main issue that I've had is that there's only this one kind of complicated program that we were able to find where if you want to use 2 mics at once. And so now what I'm doing is exploring using the mixer so that I could have XLR, because plugging in 2 USB microphones at the same time is complicated and it doesn't always pick it up on the computer. So it's nice to have that. And then you could still use the like the Audio Technica mics, which are kind of the more $50 to $80 range, or you can get nicer ones, and the sound quality is much nicer.
Yeah. So I guess what I was getting at was, so of course, using the USB microphones, most programs won't let you record 2 different microphones at the same time, and the ones that do have problems because they're not synced up properly. So I guess what I was going to say is, like, I think the simplest solution is to get one of these audio interfaces. It just has one knob, which is volume for each microphone. And then I just when you're using the mixer,
I mean, unless you have audio experience or you're doing a lot of research, there's a lot of knobs on there that I have no idea what they are.
Yeah.
So the only way I've used it is when you set it up for me. This one I could figure out pretty easily because it's pretty much there's inputs and it connects to the computer and then you see what the levels are. This one has a ton of knobs. So I think if you're doing more advanced audio, it might be useful, but for a beginner, it's really overwhelming.
And I think even for live audio, there's enough ways to tweak it through the computer that you might as well just get an audio interface. Possibly, most of them only come with 2 inputs for a reasonable price, but you can get ones that come with a certain number of inputs, but then have that digital connection to expand out to a lot more, and you can grow that way. Excuse me. So in any case, I think that's where getting something like either a higher end thing like the RME Babyface would make sense because it comes with 2. That one's really questionable because it's like $700, where it means you don't have to buy anything to boost the signal. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of out of the price range of reasonableness, but it does allow you to expand broader. So maybe you get a cheap interface and then switch to that if you get into it, or the Focusrite Forte, it only has 2 inputs, but at $400, if you're comparing it to like a $150 audio interface, like especially if you're buying cloud lifters or the price of the euro goes up for both of those channels, that's $300 right there if you buy cloud lifters. So yeah, that's the way it goes. So otherwise, we'll just talk about all the remaining equipment so you can get everything you need to get going. So the other thing you need is like a microphone stand. You can get these desk boom stands, which is a mount, and then it comes out like this, and you can angle it. From Guitar Center or Amazon, there's something called, the one that Aaron's used at work before was the ProLine Desk Boom. I think it's about $30. Then if you want something like these that let you move and swivel, they're about $100. You can get the Rode PSA swivel mount. That's what this one is. It's nice. It doesn't have these springs on it, so it doesn't ding as you move it around. And it comes with these cable ties, so you can tie your cable nicely to it. But that said, if you are getting something like the Heil PR40, that comes with an included boom arm like this, that's really a great deal. Getting them from bswusa.com, that's the way to go, because it also ends up including a shock mount, which is specific to the microphone typically, and that sort of isolates the microphone itself from any bumps by these like bungee cords. So that's really nice. So then after you have your stand, your shock mount to isolate it, you want a pop filter. And so if you buy your mic in a package from BSW, it'll come with this little device here, which I'll spin out, which is kind of custom designed for the microphone. It bolts on and then you're good. If not, you can get a $5 little device from Amazon that just clamps onto your microphone stand and then has a little articulated arm to let you cover it up. So that's fine. Those are cheap. Just get whichever one there is. Or you can, if you have like those Audio-Technica microphones we recommended last time, you can get like a little ball filter like this. It's like probably less than $1. We got like 5 of them for $3 or something on Amazon. I'll throw up a link for that. And that'll do the trick as well. Otherwise, so if you want to have 2 people with headphones on, you can get a headphone amp so that you can have the signal coming out of your audio interface or your mixer, and then plug it into here, and then both of your headphones plugged in, and each person gets their own individual volume knob. This one is the Behringer Micro Amp HA400. I think it's $20 or $30 on Amazon. Throw up a link on the website.
Now, do you need this if you're going to get like the Yeti, where you can plug it directly into the mic?
So even in the case of USB microphones, like the Yeti microphone, you can do that. You'll plug it directly in the mic, but you'll only hear your own voice. You won't hear the other person. So like maybe if you both hunched around the microphone and did an interview in a very romantic setting right next to each other, then yeah, you could hear both. But if you have 2 microphones going at once, you need something that lets you hear both of them. So, and also your guest would want to hear, even in the Yeti situation, if you wanted both you and your guest to have headphones where they can hear what's going on, you're going to need something like this. It's powered, so you'll need an outlet for it. But works pretty well for what it is. Headphones themselves, it's not too big a deal. The main thing to make sure is that it's a closed design. So it's either like those earbuds that have the little rubber sleeves that work like earplugs, or if it's a headphone you put on your ears like this, it goes over your ears, and then there's no opening here. Some audiophile headphones have an opening to make it sound more airy. And the reason you want that is you don't want noise leaking out from your headphones and back into the microphone, causing feedback or hiss. So the microphone, so you can get, we'll throw up a link. There's both, if you have an iPhone, you can get these cheap Philips in earbuds, or if you have an Android phone, that one doesn't work for a push to talk or for the microphone. So there's a couple Sony that are about the same price. So we'll throw up a link for. These headphones that we're wearing are Behringer DT770 Pros. And I just mentioned them. They're like, depending, I've only got them when they're about $120 on sale, but they range from $120 to $170. And they come in different versions for different powers of output. But I just mentioned them because they're, for me, like I have big ears and a big head, and they're super comfy. They're big enough to go totally around my ears, and they sound great for listening to music. So if you want them, this is what they look like in the box. I just bought another pair to bring to work, so I have the box still. A great option. I got the 250 ohm version, which is sort of the studio version. It works fine with my phone. Some phones might be a little not strong enough to power it, so you might need a little preamp for that. But you have them as well. I mean, I think you have the 80 ohm version. Mm-hmm. Have you used them for like listening to music and things, or mostly? No. Mostly this stuff. Anyways, they sound great for music. That's why I mention it. Software-wise, so you need something to record on the computer. You can use Audacity, which is free. It is maybe not the cleanest thing, but you're not doing much complicated. You're mostly just recording people and then maybe adjusting the level, like the volume a little bit after the fact, applying some effects or plugins that will give you some compression, which to make everybody's voice the same volume. That said, nearly any interface or mixer is going to come with software, and a lot of it's really good. I mean, so the Behringer stuff and Mackie comes with this program called Traction, which you can also buy, but I mean, it's going to come with something. It's really easy to use. It has a lot of tooltips. I like it a lot, actually. The program that comes with PreSonus gear is called Studio One. It's got lots of plugins with really good presets, actually. So you can just drag on like a de-esser or a compressor when you start like playing around with that kind of stuff, getting the volume right. If you already have a copy of or a license for Adobe Creative Cloud because you're paying for it for Illustrator or Photoshop or something like that, there's a program called Audition, which I tried briefly, worked fine. Cakewalk is the program you mentioned that you'd been using. Cakewalk is old and it kind of shows it in that it's kind of confusing to use. But it does support doing multiple USB microphones, which if you're starting out, maybe all you've got. There's many others. Podcasting's not, it's just voice. It's not that sophisticated. Use what comes with your interface, basically. You don't need to pay for anything. And if you don't have that, use Audacity. So really, anything else, the rest is just niceties. You need a laptop or a tablet to record to, or unless you have the Behringer where you can record to USB stick. The main thing there is you want one that's quiet, that's not going to be hissing a lot or anything. So I use this for show notes while we're talking, for Skype if you're going to Skype someone in. If you can get a fanless one, that's great. This one is not fanless, but it's generally quiet even when I'm recording. Like the fan doesn't turn on, so that's great. So yes, you need something like that. You can record to an iPad even with a lot of audio interfaces. Otherwise it's just like little niceties like cable ties. So these are, I don't know how you pronounce it, D''Adario, probably D'Addario. And it like clamps onto the cable like this, and then you wrap it around and it has a little loop for the bungee, and then it holds your cables together. I'm using that to attach it to this boom stand. Not very expensive. I think 10 pack is about $10, if that. One thing for the boom stands is there's a little C-clamp here that attaches them to the table. And while it's padded with rubber on the top side, the bottom side of the clamp isn't. So you want to find some sort of rubber or something if you want to protect your table surface with that as well. So what I actually ended up doing, because a lot of the little stick-on ones were too small to fit the whole thing, is I bought the 6" by 6" rubber from Home Depot. And then I just cut out a little square and used Gorilla Glue to glue it on. And that worked great. So that protects the table. And then finally, you probably still want to get some silicone rubber bumpers. And actually you can get a big one of these from Amazon, but it was kind of expensive for what it was. This is at like $250 at Home Depot. We'll throw up a link to one on Amazon, but it's just a vinyl bumper that you can put under devices that might otherwise clack when you move them around on the table. So that keeps everything quiet, because a lot of what you're worried about is background noises that you want to avoid. And finally, you need cables for everything. If you buy bundles or even those Audio-Technica microphones, they already come with the XLR cable. You need to plug them in. You may need one more if you're going to put a cloud lifter in between. The Fethead boosters already don't need a cable because they just plug in inline. And really the only cable you might need is a 1/4 inch stereo cable to plug in the headphone amp to your audio interface. And then the little adapters where most headphones have the tiny 1/8 inch connector. And then this will adapt that to a 1/4 inch that a lot of the professional audio equipment, in fact, all of this uses to plug in headphones. And really that's it. So I don't know. I mean, that might seem like a lot, but really, if you think about it in terms of, I have a microphone, I need to get it into something that'll get it into my computer. That's sort of it. So you need the microphone, you need an audio interface. Audio interface goes into your computer, you record it, and you potentially also need something to make the microphone louder, and that's where the cloud lifter or the FET head comes in, if you have a lower end audio interface. Yeah, I don't know. Any questions? I know Erin's just she's used this setup once or twice before, and before has been using the USB microphones as sort of the hacky clap mechanism of syncing them. I don't know. Do you think you're going to switch over to something like this?
Yeah, I probably will. At this point, I'd like to not use the Sonar Cakewalk software anymore because it's a little bit complicated. Some of the stuff I've come across with using kind of the cheaper end is, for example, I'm recording in various places, and so I can't always control the sound very well. So when when I was recording at school, I noticed a couple of recordings I did lately. There was a fair amount of background noise, and I think some of the stuff would actually prevent that, even if I'm in a space that I can't perfectly control the background. And it's not that much more complicated. It's just that much more money. So it just depends on what kind of level you're at. But now that I've actually been doing it for a while,
yeah, really,
I'll switch over to this.
Yeah, if you have, even if just the Audio-Technica microphones in this $150 audio interface, or there's $100 versions of it, those are probably fine by themselves. And even without the cloud lifter and the FET heads, we did the first recording without them, and still were able to just record at a lower volume before that hiss kicked in, and then on the computer boost the volume up afterwards using a compressor, and it worked fine. And the compressors typically don't boost things below a certain noise level, so that worked out well. The microphones reject the noise, so compared to the Yeti ones, these will be better. There's even like a fan going from the light that we have here. So yeah, so that's it.
Nothing compared to school fans.
yeah, but you can't hear it, so it's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Thanks everyone. Check out the post. Be sure to give us suggestions or comments or questions, and we'll try to cover those. And otherwise, we'll have links for getting all this stuff, and we'll sort of divide it by section for the least you need to the most you need. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Actually, May's coming up, so we're going to do Bike to Work is going to be our next set of stuff. So,
which I'm going to do, so I'm actually going to use that.
Yeah, so great. So we'll set you up with a bicycle and a helmet and whatever else you might need if you decide to do more than just one day. All right, thanks everyone.
Bye. Yes, perfect timing. Hey, Huxley. Who's that?